A great workout deserves a great reward. Treat yourself right with new coconut smoothie bowls made with fresh fruit, purely Elizabeth granola, and now creamy coconut. You earned it. Grab a treat you can feel good about, only at Smoothie King.
Welcome to the Two-Footed Podcast, your daily dive into the biggest stories and talking points from the world of football, with a particular focus on the Premier League. Before we get started, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider, and one of the many benefits of their service is that you can change your IP address to unlock geo-restricted content. And for Premier League fans like us, that means you can catch all the action no matter where you are. So if you use their UK VPN, that means you get all live matches on Sky Sports, TNT Sport, Amazon Prime, and the highlights with Match of the Day on BBC iPlayer. Furthermore, you can switch your location to the USA to access all those matches you may otherwise miss using American streaming services like Peacock and USA Network. If you sign up now, you can get 25% off by using the code EPL25OFF. That's EPL25 off at checkout for 25% off. That's whether you choose their VPN router or the software app for your favorite devices. Liberty Shield have got you covered. Oh, and don't forget, after today's episode, be sure to check out our shorter bite-sized pod, the Two-Footed Extra. That will keep you up to speed with all the latest news and gossip. And be sure to check out the other shows that EPL Index offers. Today was hugely enjoyable, a tad predictable, previewing every Premier League round with a different guest each week, where he really does put them through the ringer. You come off that show, I've guested on that show, you come off it, and you feel like you've been interrogated. It's a really good listen, though. There's also our new show, our roundup show. It's called The Final Whistle. It's hosted by Nina Kauser and Ben Poscod, and they summarise all the matches and the big talking points. It comes out every Sunday evening, so make sure you're listening. Now, let's dive in to today's biggest stories. Let's get boys and girls to the podcast. Today is Wednesday. It is the 18th of September. Hope you're all well and hope the weather is as nice where you are as it is where I am. We're getting unseasonable weather in September. No clouds in days. It's great. No rain, nothing. Lovely sunshine. Not too hot though, which is great as well. Right. Champions League last night. We had our 6 games and I got 5 of them right. The one I did not get right was my own team because I suggested Liverpool might draw in Milan. Instead, they won 3-1. They went 1-0 down to a Christian Pulisic goal on 3 minutes, but headed goals from Ibu Kanate and Virgil van Dijk put the Reds back ahead before half-time. And then Dominic Szoboszlai wrapped it up in the second half. In the other games, Juventus 3, PSV Eindhoven 1. Keelan Yildiz with a gorgeous goal on 21 to put Juve 1 up. Weston McKennie doubled the lead on 27. And Nico Gonzalez scored on 52 to put Juve in a commanding spot. Siberi scored on 93 to put a bit of respectability on the scoreline for PSV, who, to their credit, deserved a goal. 3-0 would not have been a fair reflection of what actually took place in the game, so I'm glad PSV got their goal. At Young Boys 0, Aston Villa 3. Villa actually had the ball in the net, I think, 6 times, definitely 5 times. I think 5 times, actually. Watkins had one disallowed, and I want to say and Duran had one disallowed. The Duran one was a very Adriano-esque finish. But Yuri Tielemans had put them 1 up on 27 minutes after some scrappy defending is how I'll describe that one in the Young Boys box. Tielemans latched onto it and ran the ball home. On 38 minutes, calamitous defending from Young Boys, who somehow managed to give the ball away in their own 6-yard box. Watkins does really well to nip onto it, gets pulled down by the goalkeeper, but Ramsey's able to step in and slot home. And then Amadou Onana, whose handball was the reason the Duran goal was disallowed, made it 3 on 86 minutes. Now, it should be pointed out, Young Boys started brilliantly and probably should have been a couple of goals up before Villa woke up and realised the game was going on. So again, 3-0, a bit of a false dawn. Again, Villa could have scored 5, but something like a 5-2, 5-3 might have been a fairer reflection on what we actually saw. 5-3 maybe, or 3-1, something like that would have been a fairer reflection of what took place. Bayern Munich 9, that's 9 with 2 ends. Dinamo Zagreb 2. Bayern had the ball in the Zagreb net on 12 occasions, but they had 3 goals ruled out. Now, one of them, when it was ruled out, resulted in a penalty. Harry Kane scored the opener from the penalty spot on 19. Rafa Guerreiro scored an absolute stunner on 33. Michael Olise made it 3-0 on 38. Then Zagreb, in the second half, fought back and scored 2 goals in less than 90 seconds. Petkovic and Ogiwara to put the shits up Bayern a little bit, but Bayern just overcame. Kane on 57, Olise again on 61, Kane from the penalty spot on 73, Kane from the penalty spot on 78, Leroy Sané on 85, and Leon Goretzka with a diving header on 92. This was entirely one-way traffic. This was a whooping, the likes of which you don't see very often in the Champions League. So, credit to Bayern. Take the dross and put them to the sword. Real Madrid 3, Stuttgart 1. Real very, very fortunate in this one. Stuttgart could have been a couple of goals up in the first half. Probably should have been a couple of goals up in the first half. Now, Real themselves could have scored in the first half, but did not. Kylian Mbappe put them 1 up on 46 minutes. Dennis Undav got Stuttgart level on 68, but an Antonio Rudiger header on 83, and Endrick with a breakaway goal on 95. The goalkeeper, Alex Nubel, will probably want back. I think he'll feel that was a weak goal to let in. Credit to Stuttgart, though. They went there, got right in Real's faces, took advantage of the fact that they were playing with Lucas Vazquez at right back and Danny Carvajal at centre back, and it's a bit of an odd defensive setup for Real, and put them open multiple times. And really, really and truly, they deserved something from the game. I actually think a draw would have been a fairer result in that one. I don't think Real deserved to win the game on the whole. Final game then, Sporting 2, Lille 0. Victor Gyökeres, as always, on 38 minutes. Angel Gomes sent off, Angel Gomes sent off on 40 for a second yellow card. And then Zeno de Bast with an absolute worldie on 65, nearly took the net off from about 30 yards out. It was a very Fabian Schär type goal, like that same type of region that Schär is just very good from. I say very good. He scores about 1 a season from there, but it's the Fabian Schär zone. And Zeno de Bast scored a worldie, so fair play. So that was last night. We obviously have a bunch of games tonight as well in the Champions League. So, Bologna take on Shakhtar Donetsk. Obviously, Bologna last season, one of the surprise packages in Europe, getting themselves into a Champions League spot. This season, it has not started as well. They currently sit 17th. They lost their manager, they lost some key players, and it hasn't been great so far. It has not been great so far. But they're taking on a Shakhtar side that, I mean, the Ukrainian Premier League is no longer the league it was a few years ago. And Shakhtar have been particularly hard hit by the foreign players being allowed to leave. So they currently sit 7th in the Ukrainian Premier League. They're 6 points off top. Dino Kiev have won 5 of 5 and look like they might run away with it this year. This is a big game for both teams, but in particular for Bologna, being at home, new manager, under pressure already. They've got to get a win here, or he might not be long for that job. Sparta Prague then hosting Red Bull Salzburg. If Salzburg had wanted to pick their first fixture, an away fixture, I think it would have been this one. Now, that's not to say that this is going to be easy. Sparta are a decent team. They're currently second in the Czech First League, level in points with Slavia Prague, but they're not one of the elite of Europe, if you know what I mean. Like, they're a team that the big sides will be looking to beat, and I think Salzburg will view as a winnable game. Now, if we take a look at the Austrian Bundesliga, Salzburg currently sit in 5th, 3 points off top, but they do have a game in hand. They have 2 games in hand on 3 of the teams above them. So they've made a solid start, 3 wins and 1 defeat. Sturm Graz, the reigning champions, are top with 4 wins and 1 defeat. Salzburg will be absolutely fine. They'll be in the mix to try and win that competition this year. PSG home to Girona. PSG are top of the French league at the moment. 4 games in, 4 wins. It's all been very, very comfortable for them. And they'll be expecting to lift yet another French title this season. Girona, one of the other surprise packages of last season, like Stuttgart and Bologna, I think, are the 2 obvious ones. Obviously, Leverkusen winning the league was a big surprise, but I think people did think they could get into the top 4 at least. Nobody had Bologna, nobody had Girona, and nobody had Stuttgart. Girona have started this season very much a mixed bag. Obviously, lost key players in the summer. 5 games in, they have 7 points and sit 9th in the league. So they will want to improve quite quickly, or might get a little bit ropey for them in terms of even getting European football for next season, which I think has to be the aim. It's unlikely they'll get Champions League, but I think they'll want to get European football and kind of establish themselves as a team that gets at least, Conference League each season. On then to our next game, which is Club Brugge against Dortmund. Bruges currently second in the Belgian Pro League, 3 points behind Genk, 13 points from 7 games. 2 defeats already in the league, though, which won't make them overly happy. Dortmund, obviously last season's beaten finalists, currently second in the Bundesliga, 7 points from their 3 games, 2 points behind Bayern Munich. Then we get Celtic taking on Slovan Bratislava. Celtic are top of the Scottish Premiership, and it's already looking like they might run away with it. Now, Aberdeen are currently level on points with them, have 5 wins from 5, but nobody's really expecting Aberdeen to hold pace with Celtic across the season. Celtic are yet to concede a goal domestically. They've scored 14 and not conceded. Rangers, who are obviously the biggest contender to them, are 5 points behind already. That's not good for Rangers at this point in the season. Now, again, Celtic, if they'd been asked to pick an opening tie, this probably would have been one of the ones they'd look at. Now, Slovan are no pushover. They are top of the Slovakian league, the Slovakian First Football League. They have 15 points from their 6 games, 5 wins, only 1 defeat. There's some decent players in that team. Barshagian is one to keep an eye on. He's a solid goal scorer, probably their biggest attacking threat. But this is one where Celtic should be able to pick up the 3 points on the night. And then finally, we've got Manchester City playing Inter Milan. Champions of England, champions of Italy. This is a really good game. This is a really big game. Both sides are undefeated domestically. City have obviously won all of their 4 games. And frankly, I think it would be a surprise if they didn't win a 5th Premier League title in a row. I think people would actually be quite shocked. Now, Arsenal will push them. We know that. But they're playing each other this weekend. It's a massive game. There's no Odegaard for Arsenal, which means Arsenal are absolutely going to go and park the bus. They did it last year. I think Pep might have figured something out for them this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But if City win, that's a 5-point gap on Arsenal already, which would be quite tough for them to start to pull back, especially as we know that City really don't get going until about February. If they get 5 points ahead going into February, it's over. If they're 5, 7, 8, 9 points ahead, you might as well give up. This could be a season where City put up a fairly monstrous points total. They're going to have their backs up as well with the whole investigation, the whole case going on. We know the hearings have already started. Pep will use that as motivation for this team. He's got a very strong squad. This is going to be a great game, though. Inter, 2 wins, 2 draws. They haven't looked quite as good, but they're third in the league, 2 points off top. Not quite as good, obviously, as yet as they were last year, where they ran away with Serie A. But I expect that Inter will cause City some problems, but I would still expect City to win this game. I would still expect City to win. So, my predictions for tonight: in the 5:45 games, I'll take Bologna over Shakhtar, and I'll take Salzburg to go to Prague and beat Sparta. In the 8 p.m. games, PSG to beat Girona. I wouldn't be surprised if Bruges and Dortmund was a draw. I'm going to go for the draw. Celtic to beat Bratislava and City to beat Inter. And with that, I'll go to break. I'll be back after this.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. With Ramp, you get full visibility into your company's spending and control who spends what with each vendor. Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts instantly to save your team valuable time. Ramp automates data entry and routine tasks with automated approvals, expense categorization and bill payments, time-consuming tasks. Which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. Get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Right, welcome back. So, the EFL Cup was on last night. I forgot to mention it yesterday. The third round kicked off. Obviously, this round is split over this week and next week. Last night, Stoke City played Fleetwood Town. The game ended 1-1. It went to penalties. And of the 9 penalties that were taken, only 3 were scored, which is quite remarkable. Fleetwood Town missed 4 of their 5 penalties, which is not good at all. And Stoke go through 2-1 on the penalty shootout. So congrats to them. Still think they made a mistake sacking Stephen Schumacher. Preston took on Fulham, and we got a giant killing. Preston won, Fulham won. Ryan led. I should have mentioned who scored in the Stoke game, actually. Hang on 1 second. Not to do them dirty on this one. Michael Rose had put Stoke 1 up on 54 minutes, and Reece Bennett equalised in stoppage time to send it to penalties. Anyway, Preston go 1 up against Fulham. Ryan Ledson scores. Reece Nelson equalises in the 61st minute. Now, unlike the previous penalty shootout, this was something to witness. There were 34 penalties taken, and only 3 people missed. We went all the way through with goalkeepers and all sorts scoring penalties. And eventually, Timothy Castagnier stepped up and missed. And Ryan Ledson stepped up and scored, and Preston go through. Earlier in the penalty shootout, Jorge Cuenca had missed and Kane Kessler-Hayden had missed. That was at 8-8. So we've been all the way through. This was Castagne's second go-round. Jimenez, Lukic, Burge, Iwobi, and Sessegnon had all scored their second penalties for Fulham, but Castagne stepped up and missed. Whiteman, Greenwood, O'Kells, McCann, Osmanic, and Ledson all scored 2 penalties in this shootout, which is a pretty impressive outcome. It really must be said. It's a pretty impressive outcome. I do note, though, that both goalkeepers scored, which I think is always impressive. Neither goalkeeper, to my knowledge, had ever scored a penalty before. But Stefan Benda, who played in goal for Fulham, he stepped up and scored, and then Freddie Woodman, with all the pressure on him, equalised. If you can find that on YouTube to watch the penalty shootout, the full penalty shootout, it's a good watch. Moving on. Brentford 3, Leyton Orient 1. Fabio Carvalho scored for Brentford with a stunner after Brandon Cooper had put Leyton Orient 1 up. Mikael Damsgaard, who's finally finding some form for Brentford, put them ahead, and then Christian Norgard made it safe. Jack Simpson sent off in the second half for Leyton Orient as they bow out. QPR 1, Crystal Palace 2. Nice little London derby there. Eddie Nketiah put Palace 1 up. Sam Field equalised, but Eberici Eze with the winner for Palace, and they marched through. Blackpool 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1. Deshaun Bernard with the only goal of the game. Sheffield Wednesday go through. Manchester United 7, Barnsley 0. Rashford and Anthony penalty. Garnacho just before half-time. Garnacho just after half-time. Rashford again, and then 2 late goals for Christian Eriksen give United a comprehensive victory against League One opposition. The final game then, Everton against Southampton. Obviously spoke about Southampton yesterday. I'm going to speak about Everton after the break. Abdoulaye Doucouré puts Everton 1 up on 20 minutes. Taylor Harwood-Bellis equalises on 32 minutes. We go to penalties. Matthias Fernandes scores. Michael Keane equalises. Ross Stewart scores. Dwight McNeil equalises. Ben Brereton Diaz scores. Iliman Ndiaye equalises. Taylor Harwood-Bellis scores. Jesper Lindstrom equalises. Joe Aribo scores. Jack Harrison equalises. James Bree scores. And Ashley Young steps up and misses. And Everton's bad season continues to get worse. An absolute stinker for the Ev. Very, very disappointing. I think Sean Dyche was probably hoping for a little bit of a cup run just to ease some of the tension around the place. Tonight then, 7:45 kickoff, all Premier League affair, Brighton against Wolves. Should be a good game. Wolves are in dreadful form. Brighton are in pretty good form. But Wolves have given Brighton tough games in the past. Should be a decent game. Then at 8 p.m, we get Coventry against Tottenham Hotspur. Now, again, the nostalgic fool in me loves this. This is a repeat of the 1987 FA Cup final, one of the great FA Cup finals, played in front of 96,000 people at the old Wembley, and Coventry won on that night, or that day rather, by 3-2 after extra time. I don't think they win this one. They're a good team. They're very well coached by Mark Robbins. I think Ange is going to go very strong with his team tonight. I think Ange has eyes on winning the League Cup. So I'm going to pick Tottenham to win, and I'll pick Brighton to win in those games tonight. And I'll be back after the break, but we're going to talk a little bit of Everton. Right, welcome back. So, like I said, it's time to have a little chat about Everton, who have made a shambolic start to the season. So, We know by now that Everton are probably the most dysfunctional club in the league from top to bottom. There is, I don't even know, a mess in terms of the ownership situation where Mashiri can't really afford to run the club anymore or doesn't want to run the club anymore. He's been trying to sell the club for a long time. They've been through multiple different avenues trying to find a buyer, and thus far they don't have one. But John Textor looks promising, though an article in The Athletic seemed to cast a little bit of doubt over whether or not he was going to be able to get the funds together to buy the club, and the fact that he was buying the club outside of his Eagles football group, which own Molenbeek, Botafogo, and Lyon. This is to be a separate entity. Whereas his shares in Palace are owned by Eagles football. So he wants to sell those shares. Some of that money then is going to be split between the other partners in Eagles football. So he'll only have access to some of it. He's looking for new partners. Apparently Jay-Z is one he's approached to buy into Everton or to buy Everton. So it's a sticky situation. We don't know yet what's going to happen with the ownership. We know that they're in massive amounts of debt from the stadium, from the 777 nonsense, which again, there does seem to be this belief among Textor and others that they're not going to have to pay back all of that. But again, that article in The Athletic suggests that that is quite naive. There's money owed to Michael Dell. There's money owed to somebody else as well. The Friedkin Group, who tried to buy the club and then saw the books and thought, oh no, we won't do this. So there's a lot of money owed out. There's not a ton of money coming in. Goodison doesn't generate big funds, but the new stadium will. But the new stadium, as things currently stand, may well be a championship stadium. We look at the squad, and there's some good players, some very good players, and then there's quite a bit of dross. You know, you've got the England goalkeeper there. You've got a decent crop of centre-backs, though I think Michael Keane's time in the Premier League has come and gone. I don't think that's a controversial statement. But Tarkowski is good. O'Brien is good. Obviously, Branthwaite is potentially outrageous. The fullback group is questionable, though I do like the looks of Romain Dixon. I think Michaelenko's decent. I think Patterson, when he's back, is good. But Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman are well past the best. And while Seamus Coleman can offer leadership and a knowledge of the club, Ashley Young doesn't really offer anything at the moment, other than being a distinct liability on the pitch. But that is a group of defenders that you can put together a strong defence from. Mason Holgate is also still at the club. The midfield group, Mangala is solid. The Curry is inconsistent but decent. Idrissa Gueye is past his best but still decent. James Garner's a good player. Irabuna might quite like, but he's not quite ready to be starting every Premier League game, and that's something Dyche is going to have to address. You've got Iliman and Jai, you've got Jesper Lindstrom, who can play that number 10 spot, but he likes to put Doucouré at that number 10 spot. So that's meaning that Njai and Lindstrom are kind of enforced into wide areas where neither of them really want to be playing. In the wide areas, they've got Dwight McNeil, they've got Jack Harrison. They're both decent players, but again, their form can be up and down. And then in terms of forwards, you've got Calvert-Lewin, you've got Beto, they've got Armando Broja, and they've got Chimetti. Both of whom are injured. It is a talented squad. It's not a great squad, but it's certainly not a bad squad. It's certainly not a bottom-of-the-table squad. But there does seem to be a distinct lack of belief in the squad. There seems to be a lack of leadership and ownership in the squad. They're 2-0 up against Bournemouth. They don't look like they believe they're going to win the game. They're 2-0 up against Aston Villa, and at no point did you believe they were going to win the game. At no point did you believe they were going to stop Villa scoring at least 3. And Villa should have scored more, in truth. You've got a manager in Sean Dyche, who I think is a very, very good manager who works really well with limited resources. Did a phenomenal job at Burnley for a decade. Has done well with Everton. given what he walked into. Like, let's remember that when he walked into the club, replacing Frank Lampard in January of 2023, Everton were struggling mightily. They were sitting in the bottom three, and Dyche pulled them out of it. Now they bounced back into it, and then they came out of it. But they survived, and they survived by 2 points from Leicester City. But last year, we saw significant improvement. Now, if you look at the table, you'll say, oh, well, they finished on 40 points. That's a little bit more. They finished in 15, so that's 2 spots higher, and there's a decent gap between them and the relegation spots because Luton, who went down in 18th, finished 14 points behind them. But that doesn't tell the whole story, which is that they were deducted 8 points. And with their goal difference, those 8 points would have put Everton in 12th. Ahead of Bournemouth, who many people lauded, including myself, lauded for a very good season last year. So Sean Dyche coached a 48-point season with Everton last year. Not only that, he did it while having the second worst attack in the league. And the reason he was able to do it is because he had the 4th best defence in the league. Only Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool conceded less goals than Everton. In fact, the next closest to Everton's 51 was Manchester United and Crystal Palace, who both conceded 58. So they were considerably better than both of those defensively. Part of that, obviously, is the style of play. It is a deep block. It is a bank of 4 in front. It is a lot of graft. It is a lot of toil. It's a little bit agricultural at times. It's a lot agricultural at other times. But ultimately, to only concede 51 goals last season, when goals were going in left, right, and centre, we saw record numbers of goals. For Everton to only concede 51 and have the 4th best defensive record in the league was outstanding. It really was. And it didn't just keep them up, it put them into 12th in the league. But the financial irregularities, the financial cheating that they had undertaken in previous years under previous managers almost sank them. Now, I think they'd have been smart to go into administration at the late points of last season when they knew they were going to stay up. I think it would have been worthwhile to take the 9 or 10 point deduction then and start getting their house in order and let the administrators come in and let the administrators sell the club. And I think it would have been a far easier process. I think the administrators also would have handled some of the debt, maybe helped secure one credit line to pay off all the rest that Everton could then just have focused on. I think ultimately that's what they're going to have to do, is they're going to have to secure one credit line under whoever buys the club to probably up against the stadium. They'll probably have to leverage the stadium. And I think that's what they'll have to do. But that would have helped clear the debt off that now hangs over the club and is quite the weight sitting on everybody. The issue with Everton is there's just no fun to be had with the club. Like, there's no fun with Everton. Last season, they finished 15th, but there was no fun to be had because of all the points deductions and the arguments and everything that went off. 17th the year before. 16th the year before. They had Carlo Ancelotti. They finished 10th his full season and 12th the season before. Prior to that, they had Marco Silva. They finished 8th. But there's no cup runs. There's no Europe. There's nothing to get excited about. They're going out early in these cups. And again, they've got out early in the cup this year. Like, we're not giving Everton fans anything to be excited about. They've made the quarterfinals of cups on 4 occasions in the last 7 or 8 years. There's no joy about Everton. There's nothing that their fans can really sink their teeth into. And we're seeing now the fans are starting to turn on the players already, which generally with Everton doesn't happen until about February time. And then they get their act together in about April and they realise the team might actually need us and they back them again. But it's happening really early this year, and my concern is that Dyche will get sacked. And I don't know who they'll bring in, but the last time they lost a good manager, which was Carlo. They brought in Rafa Benitez and didn't give him any money to spend. And Rafa, to his, like, I will always love Rafa for Istanbul, but Rafa the game has passed him by. And when they sacked Rafa, they brought in Frank Lampard. This does not show good decision-making. Dyche was a great decision, but Dyche was sitting out there ready to take the job. Who's out there that's going to be willing to take this job now? I don't see Graham Potter rubbing his hands together at the idea of taking over this. So who are they going to go for if they do sack him? And my concern is that they will sack him, that they will make that decision, and I think it will be a bad decision. I will back Sean Dyche to get them out of this because I think Sean Dyche is good enough to get them out of this. I think there's a good enough squad there. I think the way they play, which is very pragmatic and a little bit reductive, obviously, at times, I think that's how you survive in the Premier League when you're in the situation they're in. And that's me for today. I'll be back later on with 2 Footed Extra. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.